deal. Netanyahu said he would send negotiators later this week to continue negotiations. Will Bill Burns be there? What can you tell us about where things stand? So
I won't make any announcements with respect to the leader of another agency. Follow my typical practice here. But we continue to work on it. You heard the Secretary speak to this in Aspen on Friday, where he said that in his estimation we are inside the 10-yard line, but that of course doesn't mean that we'll ultimately be successful, but that if you look at how far we've come, we have significantly narrowed the disagreements between the parties and have a few remaining issues that need to be resolved. Now, since Friday, they're not yet resolved. We continue discussions with the other mediators and with the government of Israel to try to reach resolution, but we don't have that yet, and I don't have any kind of forecast about when we might come to.
So you don't anticipate this could be done by the time the Israeli Prime Minister addresses Congress on Wednesday?
I'm not going to put. I thought you were going to say when he arrives, and I was looking at the clock because I think he arrives pretty soon, like in the next few hours. I don't want to put any kind of timetable on it at all. And it's just very difficult to predict.
Will Blinken have any engagements with Netanyahu while he's here?
I would expect that he would attend the meeting with the president, but that meeting has not yet been formally announced. So.
And will he meet with the hostage families who are in town?
Will the secretary?
Yeah.
I don't have any meetings to announce today, but as you know, he has met a number of times with the families of hostages, both on our trips to Israel and here at home. And he's met with them 10 times, more than 10 times. So it has been a consistent priority of his to meet with hostage families and let them know all that we're trying to do to bring their relatives home, but I don't have any announcements to make about meetings this week. Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. With the Houthi attack on Tel Aviv on Friday, our video verification team did what they do best, and they determined that the UAV exploded about 200 meters away from the U.S. Embassy branch in Tel Aviv. Has there been any discussion with the Israelis or any conclusion as to whether the U.S. Embassy branch was indeed a target?
We do not know at this time, at least, what the actual target was, which is not to say we have any information to suggest that our embassy branch was the target. We just don't have any actual information about what the exact target was. The Israelis, I think, as they've publicly announced, have said they identified the drone as being an Iranian drone launched from Yemen. The Houthis, of course, claimed responsibility for it. We are in close contact with the Israelis as they fully investigate the source of the explosion and its intended target, but don't yet have any definitive information about that second question.
And given the proximity, do you expect, or has there been any change in security posture at that branch or any of the others?
There hasn't been, as you I think are probably aware. Since October 7th, there have been a number of attacks on Israel writ large and on Tel Aviv. There was a while when Tel Aviv was coming under daily attack from rockets from Gaza, and we, since that time, have been always very closely monitoring the security situation. We have well-established protocols at our embassy and our embassy branch office for dealing with threats. We conducted an accountability after the drone attack on Thursday, I guess it was Friday morning there, and established full accountability for all of our personnel, and our embassy and the embassy branch office are operating as normal today. Yeah, Saeed.
Thank you. Just to be clear, you're not expecting the Israeli Prime Minister to come to this building for any meeting, are you?
No.
You don't?
No.
Okay. All right. Now, let me ask you this about the Prime Minister. As an expert, not that I want you to get into his head, but
what am I an expert in?
No, you are an expert on this issue, or an expert, in the Israeli Prime Minister for sure. You've encountered him many times. But my question to you: would you be less inclined to be cooperative on this deal? He's optant by nature, but now he may feel that there's, a great deal of disincentive to go ahead with this deal, since the person who basically, articulated this deal has decided that he will no longer run for office.
So expert or not, I try not to put myself in the minds of anyone else, try to make assessments about people based on their actions, and I will speak to the actions of the government of Israel, including the Prime Minister, when it comes to this potential ceasefire deal, and that is that they have continued to stand by the proposal that the president outlined publicly some 6 weeks or so ago. We have been engaged with them over the course of the past few weeks trying to bridge the final differences, and what they tell us and what they continue to show is that they are working to try to get a deal. Doesn't mean that they are willing to agree to every demand that Hamas has made. Of course not. That's the
Right.
standard way a negotiation proceeds. But we continue to judge that they are working to try to reach a deal.
Okay, so you don't feel that a great deal may have changed, and let's say, and what Israel would want or would agree to in the last 24 hours as a result?
No, I do not. And again, I'm going to assess all the parties by the actions they take.
Yeah, a couple more questions. The U.S. criticized the ruling, the ICJ ruling, that the Israeli occupation of Palestine is illegal. Why would you do that? Because you guys, I want to learn. You are a signatory to 242, 338, and so on, which speak very clearly on what is occupied territory and so on. Why would you be opposed to a statement that is stating the obvious, actually, that the West Bank and East Jerusalem?
So if you look closely at the response that we gave to people that asked for our take on this ruling on Friday, what we said is that we have been clear that the Israeli government's support for settlements is inconsistent with international law and, of course, runs contrary to the cause of peace. And that we respect the role the International Court of Justice plays in the peaceful settlement of disputes. But what we are concerned about is that parties will use the court's advice as a pretext for further unilateral actions that will just deepen divisions and make the cause of establishing an independent Palestinian state more difficult to achieve. So we're clear on what we think about the settlement program, and we're also clear about what we think the ultimate outcome ought to be here, which is the establishment of an independent Palestinian state, and that's what we continue to pursue.
Right. I mean, your position is very clear on the occupation, very clear on the pursuit of a two-state solution and so on, and the settlement, all this. But the Israelis are not responding. Now, you continue to say that the best or the most feasible path forward on this is negotiation. But then we have the legislative body of Israel come out and say, we're not going to negotiate on this issue. So why not then, take this matter into some sort of international forum?
Because we believe the best outcome, ultimately, to establish an independent Palestinian state, and it's important to remember the practical goal that we want to see achieved. Not votes at international bodies that don't do anything, not rhetorical statements that don't do anything. We want to see the actual establishment of an independent Palestinian state. And in our judgment, to get there, it is going to require a negotiation. And it's a very difficult process. Obviously, there's a reason why this dispute has been dragging on for decades now. But we continue to push for the establishment of a Palestinian state, and we continue to look at ways to come out of the current conflict and get a ceasefire and build a ceasefire into lasting peace and build a ceasefire into enduring stability, and ultimately push for the establishment of a Palestinian state. Not to say that it's easy. Of course, it's not easy, but in our judgment, that is the route that has the ultimate best chance of success.
Lastly, on the water, Israel is using water as a weapon, according to different reports in Gaza. I mean, it's like water has been cut off by 94%. Are you aware of this situation?
I haven't seen that specific report, but I can tell you that we have been working to try and get food and, of course, water into the people of Gaza. We have been working to try and get pipelines turned back on. There have been times that Israel has made progress working with local Palestinian agencies to try to get water turned back on, and then you had events that led to pipes being disrupted again. Obviously, the provision of water is incredibly important. It's why, for another example, we've worked to get fuel into Gaza to allow desalination plants to run so they can provide water to the people who need it, and that continues to be a priority for us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll just come back to the ICJ. So in your response to that, you're talking about what you don't want parties to use this opinion as a pretext for further unilateral actions. What are we really talking about there? What is it that you're concerned that a court's decision will be used as a pretext for?
So I don't want to prescribe any from here, but just as we have criticized unilateral actions that Israel has taken, because we don't find them conducive to the goal of reaching peace, we would see actions by other parties. So you've seen us, for example, when other countries have come out and recognized a Palestinian state as a unilateral action. It's, of course, the right of any country to make that decision, but we see that ultimately as harmful to the ultimate goal of negotiating the establishment of a Palestinian state. So without prescribing any exact options that various parties may take, it's that kind of unilateral thing that outside the context of negotiations, we just ultimately don't find helpful.
Right. I think like what Said was kind of getting at, if you're basically saying we don't sort of see this court's opinion as useful. But that's not really what courts are for, right? They're not there as bodies to make useful political interventions in issues. This is an issue where you say you support international law, but in international law, the concept of international law means that there are courts that can rule on these kind of things, right? And now we've got the ICC and the ICJ have both taken actions regarding Israel in the last few months, and in both cases you've sort of pretty strongly spoken out about those courts interventions. So, how can you say that you support international law when whenever the bodies of international law act, you denounce it?
So, various parties or observers to international fora or courts here can both respect a court system and disagree with rulings that courts make. You see that all the time, just thinking about domestically here at home, where an administration can respect the work that the courts do, but disagree with an individual that ruling that comes down, be concerned about the practical implications of a decision that a court makes, plan to an appeal. It is, I think, keeping in practice with the way people respond to court decisions all around the world. And it's the case here where we can respect the role that the courts play, but also be concerned with the implications of decisions that they make. And when we have those concerns, I think it's incumbent upon us to give voice to them.
But by doing that, you're signaling to your ally Israel that it doesn't need to follow those rulings.
Yeah, so this was an advisory ruling, first of all. But I think what it signals is that when we have concerns, we're going to speak to them publicly.
I ask unanimous consent that the chairman be authorized to declare a recess at any time during today's hearing. Without objection, so ordered. I also ask